Michael Rivera was a 28-year-old assistant manager at a busy tech company in Seattle, USA. He loved his job, he worked hard, and he believed that if he stayed focused and logical, life would go smoothly. But one rainy Monday morning, Michael discovered something important. People are emotional, not logical. That morning, the office felt tense. The elevator doors opened, and Michael walked into a wave of stress, clacking keyboards, raised voices, and co-workers whispering. He noticed his colleague, Sarah, staring angrily at her computer. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. She snapped back, "Nothing. I'm fine." But she was clearly not fine. Michael knew it. Later that day, he learned the truth. Sarah had received a small comment from the CEO about her presentation. It wasn't even criticism, just a suggestion. But she felt attacked, embarrassed, and insecure. The comment was logical, her reaction was emotional, and this emotional storm spread across the entire office. People worked slower, made more mistakes, and even avoided eye contact. The whole atmosphere changed because of one small emotional reaction. That evening, Michael sat in a quiet coffee shop across from the office. He opened his notebook and wrote, "Humans don't react to events. They react to feelings." He realized something powerful. If he wanted to grow, succeed, and understand people, he needed to stop assuming everyone was rational. Most people reacted from fear, ego, insecurity, stress, or desire, not logic. He remembered a line from a book he once read: "The first law of human nature is emotion." As he sipped his coffee, he made a decision. He would learn to watch people's emotions the way a scientist observes a storm, without judgment, without reacting, just understanding. This was the beginning of his journey into the laws of human nature, and he had no idea how much this knowledge would change his career, relationships, and future. But one thing was already clear: to understand people, you must first understand their feelings. Michael closed his notebook, stepped out into the cool Seattle night, and whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I start learning how humans truly work." The next morning, Seattle was covered in a soft, gray mist. Michael arrived at the office early, determined to observe people with new eyes. He wanted to understand what really drove their behavior, not what they said, but what they truly felt. When the rest of the team arrived, Michael noticed something unusual. People were smiling, but their eyes told a different story. Some were stressed. Some were jealous. Some were worried. And some were hiding something. This was the second law of human nature he was about to learn. People rarely say what they really mean. Their true motives are hidden beneath their words. The case of Daniel. Daniel, a friendly coworker, walked up to Michael with a big smile. "Hey man, heard you handled yesterday's chaos pretty well." "Nice job," he said, patting Michael's shoulder, but something felt off. Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. His tone was overly sweet, almost practiced. And when Daniel walked away, he didn't look back. Michael paused. Why did that feel fake? Later in the day, he understood that Daniel had wanted to lead a new project, but the CEO chose Michael instead. Daniel wasn't congratulating him. He was masking disappointment, jealousy, and insecurity. His friendly words were a cover. His real motive was to hide his hurt pride. Actions reveal truth, not words. At lunch, Michael sat with Sarah again. She looked calmer today. "You okay now?" he asked. "Yeah, just stressed," she admitted. "But I'll manage." She wasn't lying, but she wasn't fully honest either. Michael could sense another emotion beneath her voice: fear. Fear of failing. Fear of looking weak. Fear of losing respect. In that moment, Michael realized something profound. Everyone is fighting an invisible inner battle every day, every hour, but they never say it openly. They hide it behind polite conversations, small jokes, workplace smiles, and professional masks. The moment of clarity. That evening, Michael stayed late, reorganizing files in the conference room. As he worked, he reflected on the day. Daniel's sweetness was a mask for envy. Sarah's confidence was a mask for fear. The intern who kept asking questions wasn't confused. He was lonely and wanted attention. The CEO who appeared strict was actually just exhausted and overwhelmed. People's behavior made sense when he looked beneath the surface. Michael wrote in his notebook again: "If you want to understand a person, ignore their words. Watch their behavior never lies." He felt like he had discovered a secret door into human psychology, one most people never opened. Tomorrow, he promised himself, he would explore the next human law. Every person wears a mask, and behind it lives their true self. Michael closed his notebook, turned off the lights, and whispered, "Time to learn what people hide." The next day felt unusually bright for Seattle. A thin layer of sunlight covered the city, bouncing off the office windows. But inside the building, something else was shining more than the weather the masks people wore. Michael had read about this idea before, how every person creates a version of themselves that they show to the world. A version that hides weaknesses, fears, and insecurities. A version that protects them. Today, he was determined to see those masks clearly. The perfect receptionist at the front desk sat Emily, the receptionist. Everyone loved her. She was always cheerful, always helpful, always smiling. "Good morning, Michael," she said in her sweet, bright voice. But today, Michael noticed something different. Her smile was perfect, but her shoulders were stiff, her eyes were tired, and her hands trembled slightly as she typed. A mask of kindness, covering exhaustion. During lunch, he overheard two co-workers whispering, "I think Emily's going through a divorce." "Really? She never shows it." Of course not, Michael thought, because her role was to be the friendly face of the company. Her mask didn't allow sadness, fear, or stress. He learned, even the happiest people might be carrying silent pain. The confident boss. In the afternoon, the team gathered for a meeting with their CEO, Mr. Donovan. He entered with strong footsteps, wearing his usual dark blue suit. He carried an air of power, shoulders straight, chin lifted, voice deep and controlled. But today, something in his performance cracked. While talking about the upcoming product launch, he kept tightening his jaw. His eyes twitched with worry. And when he thought no one was looking, he rubbed his forehead with frustration. To the team, he looked strong, but to Michael, he looked overwhelmed. A mask of confidence, hiding pressure. After the meeting, Michael wrote in his notebook, "Leadership is often a mask too. Power can hide fear." The workplace actor. Later in the day, Michael had to work with Jason, a coworker known for his humor. Everyone saw Jason as the funny guy, the one who joked around, made people laugh, and acted like nothing ever bothered him. But when the two were alone in the server room, Jason dropped the act for just a moment. He stared at the floor and whispered, "Man, I hope I don't get laid off this year." Michael was surprised. Jason was one of the most liked employees, but suddenly, he saw the truth. Jason wasn't joking all the time because he was happy. He was joking because he was scared. A mask of humor, hiding insecurity. But the moment Jason realized he had spoken too honestly, he quickly put the mask back on. Anyway, did you hear the one about, and the jokes began again. The lesson of the day. When the office finally quieted down, Michael sat at his desk and reflected. All day, he had seen not just faces, but masks. The cheerful receptionist who was quietly hurting, the confident CEO who feared failure, the funny coworker who was anxious about his future. Every person had two selves. Heavy check mark the mask they show, heavy check mark the truth they hide. He wrote, "Never assume people are exactly who they appear to be. Everyone is protecting something." And then he added, "The real skill is seeing the person behind the performance." As he left the office that evening, Michael felt something shift inside him. He wasn't just observing people anymore, he was beginning to understand them. The following week brought heavy rain to Seattle. Drops slid down the office windows like silver threads, blurring the world outside. But inside Michael's mind, things were becoming clearer than ever. Today, he was about to discover something deeper. People don't act based only on today, they act based on yesterday. Their childhood shapes their behavior more than they realize. The mystery of Mr. Donovan. While walking to the break room, Michael overheard two senior employees discussing the CEO. "Mr. Donovan, did you know he grew up in a military family? Explains why he's so strict." Suddenly, so many things made sense. His rigid rules, his perfectionism, his strict tone, his intolerance for mistakes. Mr. Donovan didn't behave this way because he wanted to scare people. He behaved this way because he had grown up in a house where strictness meant love, safety, and order. His childhood had taught him, if you're not perfect, you're punished. So now, years later, he repeated that pattern with everyone around him. He wasn't being controlling, he was being conditioned. Emily's hidden story. During lunch, Michael noticed Emily, the receptionist, looking at old photos on her phone, pictures of a little girl and a peaceful suburban home. She smiled softly, but the smile looked nostalgic. Sadder. Later that day, she quietly told him, "This divorce, it's harder because my parents split when I was a kid. I promised myself I'd never live through that again." Suddenly, her mask made sense. She wasn't just hiding exhaustion, she was hiding a fear that began in childhood, a fear of being abandoned, broken, or alone. Everything she did, being helpful, being kind, being perfect at her job, came from one desire to keep people close. To avoid losing them. Her childhood wound still lived inside her. Jason and his jokes. Jason, the office comedian, entered the room with his usual energetic smile. Morning, people. Who's ready to survive another day without coffee poisoning? Everyone laughed, but Michael noticed something when Jason made people laugh. He watched their faces nervously, almost measuring their reactions. After work, Michael found him alone in the parking garage, sitting in his car with his head rested on the steering wheel. You okay? Michael asked. Jason sighed. My dad was strict. Never laughed. Never smiled. Never approved. I guess I learned to win people's approval with jokes. When people laugh, I feel safe. Safe, that was the word. Jason wasn't trying to be the funny guy. He was trying to avoid childhood fear, the fear of not being enough. The pattern revealed as the day ended. Michael walked slowly through the quiet office hallway. The lights were dim, and the hum of computers created a soft background sound. He realized something enormous. Every adult carries the child they used to be. Every fear, every insecurity, every habit begins in childhood. Suddenly everyone made sense. The strict boss, the cheerful receptionist, the funny coworker. They were not just coworkers, they were children who grew up, carrying old wounds into new lives. Michael wrote in his notebook, to understand who someone is today, look at who they were yesterday. Then he added, childhood is the invisible script that guides adult behavior. As he closed his notebook, he felt connected to people in a new way, not judging them, but understanding them. He whispered to himself, the past is never gone. It lives inside every person. A few days later, Seattle's rain paused, leaving the streets washed and quiet. Inside the office, however, another kind of storm was forming, one that had nothing to do with weather. It was emotional. Michael was about to learn the next law of human nature. Emotions are contagious. Who you are affects who others become. He never realized how powerful this was, until the day everything went wrong. The morning crisis. It started with a simple email. While Michael was preparing reports, a company-wide message appeared in everyone's inbox: system failure in server room. All teams on hold. Instantly, the office fell into panic. People rushed through the hallways. Phones rang non-stop. Someone spilled coffee on their keyboard. Another person muttered curses under their breath. All it took was one stressful message, and the entire atmosphere changed within minutes. Not because the problem was huge, but because fear spread like fire. The calm in the chaos. In the middle of this chaos, Jason, the funny coworker, suddenly became very quiet. Sarah looked pale. Emily kept answering calls with shaking hands, but the biggest surprise came from Mr. Donovan. The normally strict, intense CEO walked into the room, and instead of shouting or panicking, he calmly asked, who needs help? His voice was steady. His steps slow. His expression controlled, and like magic, the room shifted. People's breathing slowed, the panic softened, the stress began to melt away. Michael watched with amazement. Mr. Donovan didn't fix the servers. He fixed the emotional atmosphere. He showed Michael something important. Calm is stronger than chaos. A single stable person can settle the entire room. The realization hits after the server issue was finally solved. Michael sat at his desk thinking about what he had seen. He realized when someone panics, others panic. When someone the next morning, the sky over Seattle was a soft blue, calm, peaceful, almost gentle. But inside Michael's mind, a new storm was forming. He had begun to see patterns everywhere, emotional reactions, hidden motives, childhood shadows, and the way one person's mood could shift an entire room. But today he was about to confront one of the strongest forces in human nature: desire. What people want shapes everything they do, even when they don't realize it, and he would learn this lesson from someone he least expected. A new character. Olivia, a new employee, joined the team that week. Olivia, a marketing strategist, transferred from the New York branch. She was confident, ambitious, and sharply intelligent. On her first day, she greeted everyone with firm eye contact and a professional smile, but Michael noticed something else. She watched people closely. She studied reactions. She measured conversations like a chess player watching the board, and it didn't take long before Michael discovered why. The CEO's special meeting on the third day of her arrival, Mr. Donovan called a sudden meeting. We're launching a new product next quarter, he announced. And I want Olivia to lead the marketing strategy. The room went silent, not because people disliked Olivia, but because some of them wanted that position for themselves. Michael glanced around. Daniel's jaw tightened. Sarah looked disappointed. Jason raised his eyebrows in surprise. Everyone had a reaction. Everyone had a desire. The key: people aren't driven by logic, they are driven by wants. After the meeting, as the team packed up their things, Michael noticed something fascinating. People weren't thinking about the project, they were thinking about their own desires. Daniel wanted recognition, Sarah wanted stability, Jason wanted approval, Emily wanted harmony, and Olivia, Michael realized she wanted power, not political power, not controlling others, but the power of success, achievement, and proving her worth. Her ambition was her engine. The private conversation later that afternoon, Michael found Olivia standing alone on the rooftop terrace, looking out at the rainy city skyline. He walked over and said, "Congratulations on leading the project." She gave a small smile. "Thanks. I've been waiting for an opportunity like this." "How did you get noticed so quickly?" he asked. Olivia didn't hesitate. "People respect confidence," she said. "And they listen to the person who understands what they want." Michael realized her strategy. She didn't just introduce herself, she learned the CEO's desires, innovation, efficiency, results. She spoke to those desires, she aligned with them, and because of that, she rose quickly. Not magic, not manipulation, understanding desire. Desire makes people predictable. The next few days revealed even more. Daniel worked longer hours, not because he cared about the project, but because he wanted to prove he was still valuable. Sarah volunteered for extra tasks, not out of enthusiasm, but because she desperately wanted security. Even Emily, always kind and polite, suddenly started asking Michael about future team roles. Her desire for stability was growing stronger. Every action had a root. Every root was desire. Michael wrote in his notebook, "If you know what someone wants, you know how they will act." The lesson becomes personal. That night, while walking home under the glowing Seattle streetlights, Michael realized something surprising. He, too, had desires. He wanted to understand people. He wanted to grow. He wanted to become someone wiser, stronger, more capable. Just like everyone else, he was driven by invisible forces inside him, and the moment he recognized that, everything became clear. He whispered to himself, "Desire shapes destiny." Tomorrow, he would discover something even more dangerous: envy, the silent emotion that can destroy everything. Complains. Others complain. When someone stays calm, others calm down. Humans unknowingly mirror the emotional energy around them. Michael remembered how, when he first started working at the company, he used to react emotionally, getting stressed when others were stressed, frustrated when others complained. But now he understood: if you don't control your emotions, someone else will control them for you. The unexpected test later that day, he was given an opportunity to test this new understanding. The intern, David, a nervous, inexperienced young man, accidentally deleted a file Michael needed. When he realized his mistake, David froze in fear. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." His voice cracked. His eyes filled with panic. A few months ago, Michael might have snapped or raised his voice, but today, he took a slow breath. He remembered what he had learned. He put a hand on David's shoulder and said calmly, "It's okay. Mistakes happen. We'll fix it." Within seconds, David's face relaxed, his fear melted. He even smiled a little. The energy changed because Michael changed it. This was emotional power, not manipulation. Leadership. The lesson of part 5. When the day ended, Michael wrote in his notebook, "People don't follow instructions, they follow emotions." Then he added, "If you want influence, stay calm when others fall apart." For the first time, Michael felt something new, not just understanding human nature but using it wisely. He closed his notebook and whispered, "Tomorrow, I'll learn how desire guides people," and so began the next chapter of his journey. The following week brought a heavy, cold rain to Seattle. The office windows shook gently as wind pushed against them, and the sky outside looked like a giant gray curtain. But inside the office, something colder was forming, something invisible, something quiet. Envy. Michael had read that envy was one of the most dangerous emotions in human nature, because unlike anger or fear, envy hides. It smiles. It pretends. It waits. And this week, Michael saw it everywhere. The change in Daniel. Ever since Olivia was chosen to lead the marketing project, Daniel had been acting different. He still greeted Michael politely. He still smiled at team meetings. He still pretended everything was normal, but Michael noticed the small signs. Daniel avoided eye contact. His jokes had a bitter tone. He complimented Olivia, but in a way that didn't feel real. He started working alone and staying distant. Daniel wasn't angry. He was envious. He wanted the position Olivia had earned. He wanted recognition, importance, respect, but instead of admitting his feelings, he hid them behind silence and sarcasm. Envy rarely announces itself. It whispers. The tension grows over the next few days. Things got worse. During a team discussion, Daniel said, "Olivia's plan sounds interesting. A little risky. But if she thinks she can handle it, good for her. The words were polite, but the tone was sharp, and the room felt it. Olivia paused, surprised. Jason raised his eyebrows. Even Sarah looked uncomfortable. Michael realized Daniel's envy was no longer silent, it was starting to leak into his behavior. Envy doesn't stay quiet forever. Eventually, it must escape. The break room incident. One afternoon, Michael walked into the break room and found Daniel whispering to a coworker. "I don't know why the CEO is so impressed with her," Daniel said. "She's only been here a few days." The coworker nodded awkwardly when Daniel noticed Michael. He quickly changed the subject. "Oh hey. Just talking about the weather." But the damage was done. Michael saw the truth clearly. Envy turns people into critics not because others are bad, but because they fear being less. Michael confronts the truth that evening. Instead of going straight home, Michael stayed in the office and stared at the city lights through the window. Why did envy hit Daniel so hard? The answer came suddenly. Because Daniel didn't want Olivia's job. He wanted validation. He wanted to feel important, respected, seen. But when someone else got the opportunity, that old childhood wound of not being good enough reopened. Envy always comes from comparison, and comparison always comes from insecurity. Michael wrote in his notebook, "Envy is not about what others have. It's about what we fear we lack." The private conversation. The next morning, Michael approached Daniel gently. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "Everything okay?" Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." Michael paused. "You know, it's normal to feel disappointed when someone else gets the position you wanted." Daniel froze. His eyes softened for a moment. The mask fell away. "Maybe," he whispered. "Maybe I just wanted to matter." There it was, the truth beneath the envy. Michael didn't judge him. He simply nodded and said, "You already matter. One project doesn't change that." Daniel exhaled deeply, like a weight had been lifted. Sometimes envy disappears not through punishment, but through understanding. The lesson of part 7. When the day ended, Michael wrote, "Envy is silent poison. It hides behind smiles and polite words, but if you listen closely you will always hear its shadow." And then he added, "The cure for envy is not success. It is self-worth." He closed his notebook slowly, realizing that understanding envy had brought him closer to understanding human nature's darkest corners. Tomorrow, he would face something even deeper: how people deceive themselves and how they lie to protect their ego. But that was a lesson for the next chapter. The next morning, Seattle was soaked with rain again. Drops tapped gently on the office windows like a steady heartbeat. But inside the building, something much louder was happening, though no one spoke of it aloud. Today Michael would learn one of the most uncomfortable laws of human nature: people lie, and not just to others, but to themselves, and these self-deceptions shape their choices, relationships, failures, and successes. The unexpected conflict. It happened during a project meeting. Olivia presented her new marketing plan, confident, clear, strategic. Everyone could see the logic. Everyone could see the potential. Everyone except Sarah, normally calm and polite. Sarah suddenly interrupted. "I don't think this plan is realistic," she said sharply. "We don't have the resources. We don't have the time. And honestly, it doesn't fit our brand." The room went silent. Olivia looked stunned. Mr. Donovan raised an eyebrow. Jason's eyes widened. This wasn't like Sarah at all. Something deeper was happening. The hidden truth behind Sarah's words. After the meeting, Sarah avoided everyone. She walked quickly back to her desk, pretending she had work to finish, but Michael knew something was off. So during lunch, he gently approached her. "Want to talk?" he asked. Sarah sighed, but she didn't look up. "I'm just stressed. That's all." But Michael had learned how to read people. Her voice was tight, her hands trembled, her eyes were filled with guilt. She wasn't stressed, she was hiding something, from others and from herself. Finally, Sarah whispered, "I don't want Olivia's plan to fail, I want her to fail." Michael froze. Sarah continued. She came in, and suddenly the CEO treats her like she's the star. "I've been here for years, and I still struggle to be noticed." Her voice cracked slightly. "But I can't admit that I'm jealous. So I tell myself her plan is bad. It feels easier." There it was, at the self-deception. Sarah wasn't protecting the company, she was protecting her ego, the ego's favorite tricks. On his bus ride home that evening, Michael began writing quickly in his notebook. He realized humans lie to themselves using the same patterns. *1. I'm not jealous, I just care. But jealousy hides under fake concern. *2. I'm not wrong, they are. But the ego hates admitting mistakes. Heavy checkmark 3. I'm not afraid, I'm just being realistic. But fear often disguises itself as logic. Heavy checkmark 4. I didn't want it anyway. But this is how people protect themselves from disappointment. Heavy checkmark 5. I'm fine. But most people are not fine. Humans create stories to avoid painful truths about themselves, are not because they're bad, but because accepting the truth hurts. Olivia's conversation the next day. Olivia approached Michael privately. I don't get why Sarah attacked my idea, she said quietly. I thought we were okay. Michael looked at her carefully. She's not against you, he said. She's against how your success makes her feel. Olivia nodded slowly. That's complicated, she murmured. Michael replied, humans are complicated, most of the time, they don't even understand their own emotions. Olivia smiled slightly. Thanks for being honest. A lot of people wouldn't say that. Michael realized something interesting. People are not afraid of the truth, they're afraid of the pain behind it. The cracking mask. Later that evening, Sarah came to Michael's desk. Can we talk? She whispered. They stepped into a quiet hallway. I thought about what you said, she admitted. You're right. I wasn't being honest with myself. I was acting from insecurity. She swallowed hard, then added, I'm tired of pretending I'm okay when I'm not. Michael felt a strange warmth in his chest. This was growth, real, painful, human. Not many people face their own shadows. The lesson of part 8. When Michael returned to his apartment that night, he wrote, people lie to themselves to protect their ego. Self-deception is the most powerful and dangerous illusion. Then he added, you cannot change a person until they are willing to see the truth about themselves. Tomorrow, he would learn something even more fundamental: how deeply people crave belonging and why the need for validation shapes every decision. Seattle's sky was unusually clear that morning, almost too bright for the mood Michael carried inside. He had been wrestling with a new, uncomfortable truth: humans justify anything, good or bad, if it protects their self-image. This week, he saw it everywhere. People told lies, but called them small adjustments. People hurt others, but claimed it was for the best. People acted selfishly, but insisted I had no choice. It wasn't evil. It was human nature, not maliciousness, but moral fog, a clouded view of right and wrong caused by emotion, ego, and fear. And today, Michael was about to witness it firsthand. A small lie with a big shadow. In the afternoon, Michael met with Sarah to review the final proposal. She seemed tense, tapping her pen faster than usual. What's wrong? He asked. She hesitated. Nothing major, just pressure. But Michael could see more. Her shoulders were tight, her eyes kept drifting away. Later, when he checked the submitted numbers, he noticed something. A small financial estimate had been slightly altered, and not enough to cause harm, but enough to make the team look better. Michael confronted her gently. Did you adjust this number? She froze, then slowly nodded. I didn't think it mattered. It makes our department look more efficient. Everyone does it. Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse her. Instead, he asked, why did you feel you had to? Her answer stunned him. Because I'm scared of losing my job. Suddenly, her choice made sense. Most people don't break rules because they're bad, they break them because they're afraid of losing status, afraid of losing approval, afraid of losing control. When good people do wrong things. That evening, Michael stayed in the office late, thinking. He realized something powerful: as people don't judge their actions by what they do, but by how they feel while doing it. Sarah didn't think she lied, she thought she survived. Daniel didn't think he sabotaged the office festival earlier. He thought he defended his pride. Laura didn't believe she insulted the intern, she believed she taught him a lesson. Everyone had a justification, and so did he. Michael remembered all the times he had excused his own mistakes. I didn't mean to hurt them. They misunderstood me. I was tired. I didn't have a choice. Looking back, he realized he wasn't different from anyone else. He was human too. The 9th law, self-deception is natural. Michael wrote in his notebook, humans are masters at lying, not to others, but to themselves. We protect our self-image at any cost. We paint ourselves as the hero, even when we're not. And once Michael saw this law clearly, the world looked different. He didn't feel angry at people anymore. He felt understanding. He didn't feel disappointed. He felt aware. To navigate life wisely, he realized, is not to judge others, but to understand the emotional forces that push them into the fog. And tomorrow, he would face the final lesson, the law that shapes destiny itself. The sun was just rising over Seattle when Michael arrived at the office, earlier than he ever had before. The sky was washed in soft pink and orange, a quiet reminder that every new day is a chance to understand people, and yourself, more deeply. Today wasn't a normal day. Today he would learn the most important law of human nature, the one that ties all the others together, the one that decides who succeeds and who fails, who grows and who collapses under pressure. It wasn't about understanding others. It was about understanding himself. The breaking point around noon, Michael was called into the CEO's office. She looked serious but calm. "I've reviewed your work," she said. "You've done extremely well. But I heard there was a problem with some numbers in the proposal." Michael took a breath. It was Sarah, he admitted. But she did it out of fear. Not because she wanted to cheat. The CEO let out a long sigh. "You're honest," she said. "But honesty isn't enough. You need strength. Leadership. Clarity under pressure." Her words struck deep. Strength, leadership, clarity. Michael suddenly realized he understood other people better now, but he still struggled with himself, with his own emotions, impulses, fears, and reactions. That was the real battle. The moment of truth. Later that day, he walked to the employee lounge and found Sarah sitting alone, looking defeated. "I'm sorry," she whispered without looking up. "I messed up." Michael sat across from her. "Everyone messes up," he said gently. "Including me. Including all of us. What matters is owning it." She finally met his eyes. "You're not angry." "No," he replied. "But we can't hide anymore. Not from others, and not from ourselves." She nodded, silently understanding that this moment wasn't just about a number or a proposal. It was about growth. The 10th law, control yourself first. That night, after everyone left, Michael stood alone in the empty conference room. The city lights glowed through the windows like distant fireflies. He opened his notebook one last time and wrote, "You cannot control others, you cannot control the world, you can only control yourself, and that is enough." Every human law he had learned, envy, masks, emotional reactions, self-deception, led to this truth: mastering human nature begins with mastering your own nature. He looked at the city again, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, freedom, not because the world changed, but because he did. The beginning, not the end. The next morning, the CEO called him in again. "I've decided," she said. "You will lead the new project." Michael blinked in surprise. "Why me?" "You see people clearly," she replied. "And now, you're starting to see yourself clearly too. That is the rarest skill in leadership." He walked out of her office with a quiet smile. The story wasn't ending. It was only beginning. Michael had learned the laws of human nature. Now he would use them to build a wiser, stronger, more confident life. A life where understanding replaced judgment, where awareness replaced confusion, and where self-mastery replaced fear.